according to Rabbi Yoshua, 2 for the warning, 2 for the, 2 for the seclusion. Okay, that's straight out of our Mishnah. Now, over the past couple of weeks, we've raised the question: what about if the husband wanted to? He was angry at his wife or something like that, right? How could this be? So tonight we're going to investigate these opinions of Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Hoshua a little bit more carefully. Okay? Now, we've also learned that Tuma only requires one witness. Tuma being the actual act of intimacy between a man and a woman. Meaning that and everybody agrees to this, if there was a kinui and there was a stira, right? There was a warning and there was a seclusion. And then even if only one person saw the two of them engaged in an intimate act, and we saw the different opinions as to how much the witness actually had to see, but if one witness saw them engaged in an act of intimacy, everybody agrees that that one witness would be sufficient to prohibit her to her husband and to prohibit her to the, quote, adulterer. Not enough to kill her. For that, you would require 2 people, but one person would be enough. So we actually have 3 things. We have kinui, the warning, stira, the seclusion, tuma, the act of intimacy. The normal case of sotah is kinui, stira, and we don't know what happened inside. That's why she goes to the Beis Hamikdash and drinks the water, and that is a way of finding out what happened inside. If she dies, then what happened inside was that she had a relationship, and if she doesn't die, then she didn't have that relationship inside. Okay. But if there happened to have been witnesses for the kinui, witnesses for the stira, and a witness for the tuma, the halacha is she doesn't drink the water. She's prohibited to her husband. She loses the ksuba. She's prohibited to the adulterer. End of story. She doesn't get killed, but end of story. End of marriage, end of story. Okay, yes.
I don't know if we covered this. What happens if she knows she's guilty and he brings her to the Beis Hamikdash and she says, I'm not drinking this water? They can't force that water down her throat.
They cannot force the water down her throat.
What happens to the relationship and what happens to her?
If she refuses to drink the water, she loses her ksuba.
Okay.
She is forbidden to her husband, and she is forbidden to the adulterer.
And could she remarry in the future?
No,
Somebody else?
she can marry someone else. Yes.
Except for you, she couldn't marry you.
Right. She could marry a Kohen. Right, but she could theoretically marry someone else.
So that seems like, I mean, why would she do that all the time? Not like be subject to the sotah in the conviction.
Why would any woman go
Well, if she
through it?
wants to get, if she wants to get out
Let's
of the
say she comes
relationship
out
or
at the
not,
end and she's not guilty.
Why
She's gonna
why
go back and live with the guy.
why would any woman want to?
Why would she, at the end of the day, not?
Because she's convinced that her husband. I mean, she knows she didn't do anything wrong beyond being secluded with this guy. That was not right. But she didn't sleep with this guy.
That's right.
And why should she lose her ksuba? In other words, now if her husband wants to divorce her, let's say she drinks the
But
water.
if he doesn't want to.
No, she drinks the water and she dies. I'm sorry. Oh, she drinks the water and she dies. End of
He
discussion.
might live and he could die.
Right? She drinks the water.
If he cheated.
No, if
If
he
cheated,
No.
he
cheated,
doesn't
nothing
die.
happened.
if he
No,
cheated,
she
nothing
can't
happened.
die if
What
he
she
doesn't
what
die.
she drinks, he
No.
dies.
No.
No.
But
The only one whose life at risk is God.
and the adulterer.
And another, so if she drinks the water and she doesn't die.
Okay, let's say she was secluded with this guy,
Right.
but she did not have relations with him. Right? They had a Diet Coke together, but they did not have relations. Now, en achinami, she was wrong to be secluded with this guy. She violated the laws of Yichud. Okay. Now, she drinks the water. She doesn't die.
She can't divorce him.
right? She can't divorce him.
She's stuck with him the rest of her life.
She is-
After he put her through all this humiliation and embarrassment.
Right, but all the humiliation and embarrassment ends with
She gets,
all the humiliation and embarrassment ends with he's the lowlife, the
But
husband,
she's stuck with him.
and she's a tzaddikus.
Yeah, but she's stuck with him for the rest. I mean,
Okay,
not
wait a
happening.
second, Ron. You are
no, I'm just saying, why wouldn't she just say, I'm gonna do it, but I'm not drinking it? So I'm forbidden then.
Right.
I don't want
That's
him
what I'm
anyway.
saying. That's what I'm saying.
because she. Wait a second. Ron is assuming. Ron is assuming that we are looking for a happily married couple. And in actuality, the Gemara is being much more practical here. What the Gemara is saying is that this woman does not want to forfeit her ksuba. Right? Ksuba was a significant sum of money. This woman does not want to forfeit her ksuba. And if her husband is going to try to get rid of her by going through this whole sotah process and humiliating her, she's not going to let him do it and not have to pay her ksuba. In other words, the bottom line is, I know I didn't do anything. I know I didn't sleep with this guy. So therefore, the water's not going to kill me. So am I going to be humiliated? I'll be temporarily embarrassed in public, but I'll be vindicated at the end. And more than that, this guy's going to have to support me.
Is it a one-time payment or is it a continuation payment?
No, as long as they're married, he has to continue to support her.
Support him.
And what is if they divorce her?
If they get divorced, then he has to pay her a one-time payment.
One-time payment.
He has to pay her a one-time payment of her ksuba. All right? That's what she would live off of, until she found somebody to get married. Or maybe she wouldn't find anybody to get married to. Right? So that ksuba is an important part of a woman's protection. So why wouldn't she just refuse to drink the water? Because number one, she wants to be vindicated publicly. Number two, she doesn't want to forfeit her ksuba. Forfeiting her ksuba is a forfeit of her ability to live independently. So she doesn't want to do that.
But she doesn't get that. She stays married to the guy.
No, but he has to.
So he has to support her.
Well, that's supported. They're living in the same household, but they're not.
Even if they're not living in the same household, he has to support her.
He has to support her, he has to have.
Let's say he says, you know what? I'm really unhappy that you were secluded with this guy. We're separating.
Okay.
If she goes through the whole thing.
Does halacha recognize separation? And the answer is no. Halacha does not recognize a separation.
Or remains married to her, whatever else he does.
Until there's a get, you are still technically married. What does that mean? That means he has to support her. That's what that means. So she doesn't lose in that scenario.
but if she dies during the Sotah ceremony, then, I mean, it's never wrong, so she did sleep with the guy. She just
If
had
she
relations.
dies from drinking the water, it's over. It's over.
No,
It's a
but
list of her issues.
there are no false convictions with the Sotah ceremony.
Right, you do
The
not.
boyfriend dies too.
There's no voice coming from Shemaim saying, "Whoops."
Okay,
know.
all right, so in that case, if she's gonna be killed, then she did sleep with him. So why wouldn't she refuse to do it?
Would probably.
So why would there be why would she?
Are you asking the question? Are you
If
asking
she's
the following
guilty.
question? She knows she's
Why would a
guilty.
guilty woman go through?
Why
the
would a
whole
guilty
process?
woman go through this whole process?
Exactly.
So the Gemara later on is actually going to ask.
Believe it.
The Gemara later on is actually going to ask that question, and the Gemara will answer it by saying,
She thinks he's guilty.
no, by saying
He may have been
either
guilty.
that she thinks he's guilty, or there are times where she's guilty and she doesn't die right away from the water because there are other merits that she has that protect her for some time. So she might think, hey,
Is a slow death, you mean?
she might think, well, we're all dying a slow death, right? She might think, hey, I can get away with this, right? Because I have these other merits. Well, the Gemara, your question is a question the
You also
Gemara
have to have
obviously
faith
will
that this
ask.
whole
Doesn't she lose
crazy
the
process is gonna work.
ketubah for seclusion?
No.
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 Jeff is correct. No, she becomes prohibited to her husband
Right.
if there were witnesses to the kinui and there were witnesses to the stira.
Okay.
At that point, she becomes prohibited to her husband.
Right.
Now, they then go to the Beis Hamikdash and
if they
have her
don't-
drink the water.
But if they don't,
If they don't
He has
go
to
to the Beis
continue to
Hamikdash,
support her?
he has to continue to support her. He's not-
or he can divorce her and give her.
or he can divorce her and give her
okay,
his
give her
suba.
again.
Right. In other words, they can't live together,
Right.
but he still has an obligation to support her.
What's the purpose of the witnesses though? Because you're gonna go through the process regardless of the witnesses, correct?
If there are no,
Process, yeah.
the witnesses are confirmation of the warning and the seclusion.
And why only one or two witnesses in a situation like this where with a murder, you need 3 witnesses, right? No? 2 witnesses? 2 witnesses for murder.
Normally we usually require 2 witnesses. We never require more than 2 witnesses. 100 witnesses is of the same strength as 2 witnesses. But normally we require 2 witnesses. Why is there a machlokes between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yehoshua? They both agree that the warning needs 2 witnesses. Okay, no chachma there, right? Because we know that 2 witnesses is a standard. They disagree, and they both agree that sexual intimacy requires only 1 witness.
Can
Why?
that one be the husband?
What?
Can that one be the husband also?
Could that one witness be the husband? I don't see why not.
Yeah, it says so in the notes.
I don't see why not.
For seclusion, it can be, but also for intimacy?
Also for intimacy. Okay?
Because he has an incentive to lie.
By the way, the witness has to be a kosher witness. Do all that.
No. Because it could even be the husband.
He's not a kosher witness.
He's not a kosher witness because he's related to her.
In the notes
So
it
that means
says
all the
that-
other things, gambling
You know,
and
it says
being
that
shomer
one
mitzvahs
witness-
are out the window?
No, those apply also.
It could
Those
even
apply.
be atypical situations like relatives who have a vested interest if it's one witness, because that's a special case, but it says that in the notes, I don't know where to get it from, but.
So, why does the tuma only require 1 witness?
Well, it's not criminal.
And it's not, no.
We
death
learned it last
penalty.
week. Why does the tuma require only 1 witness?
It's
Because the
unlikely to have
pasuk
2
says,
Right.
no, I mean, that might be true, but that's not the source. The source for why we only require 1 witness is because the pasuk says, v'aid ein ba. And we learned v'aid ein ba means not that there wasn't even 1 witness, means that there weren't 2 witnesses. Another way of saying there weren't 2 witnesses is saying there was 1 witness. So from the Torah itself, we learn that 1 witness is sufficient for tuma, for intimacy between the woman and the man. So everybody agrees 2 witnesses for the warning. Everybody agrees 1 witness for the actual act of intimacy. Where do they disagree? They disagree in the stira, in the seclusion. Rabbi Eliezer says 1 is sufficient. Rabbi Yoshua says, no, you need 2. What are they disagreeing about? That's what we're going to focus on today. Okay?
Have there been documented cases of like women dying during Sotah?
Sure. Gemara talks about it.
Really? In this book?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, cool. All right.
Cool.
It's nice to see that
He's gonna write down the
historical
formula.
validation of this process.
It's called misogyny.
Okay. It's just my cold. What did they say? A cold takes 7 days or a week? It's 7 days with no medication, a week with medication. What? I'm better than I was last week. Okay.
Taking your apple cider vinegar?
I'm telling you, I should be doing that. Okay, so what does the Gemara say? Let's look in the Gemara now. Okay. 2b3. What does the Gemara say? So remember, Rabbi Yoshua said 1 witness for the stira. Rabbi Yehoshua says 2 witnesses for the stira. Rabbi Eliezer says 1 witness for the stira. We are now going to learn what the source of the disagreement between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yehoshua is. So the Gemara begins by saying, this is the last lines of 2b2. My taima de Rabbi Yehoshua. What's the reason that Rabbi Yehoshua says 2 witnesses for stira? Right? Why does he say 2 witnesses for stira? Amra kra, because the verse says ba. right? V'aid ein ba. How does Rebbe Yehoshua understand ba? Ba meaning tuma, right? The act of intimacy. But regarding that, one witness is sufficient. Ba velo bekinui, ba velo bestira. That what? So what is Rebbe Yehoshua's position? What is excluded from the normal rule of two witnesses? Only intimacy. The normal rule of two witnesses works all the time, except in the case of intimacy where the Torah tells us one witness is sufficient. That is the svara. That's what Rebbe Yehoshua is thinking. All right? The Torah specifically excludes intimacy from the rule of two witnesses, but it doesn't exclude anything else. So therefore, everything else must still follow the rule of two witnesses. I need two witnesses for the kinui, and I need two witnesses for the stira. That's Rebbe Yehoshua's opinion. What about Rebbe Eliezer? Rebbe Eliezer Omer, because remember, what is Rebbe Eliezer? Rebbe Eliezer disagrees when it comes to stira. Rebbe Eliezer holds two for warning, one for stira. So the Rebbe Eliezer Omer, Rebbe Eliezer says ba velo bekinui. How does Rebbe Eliezer understand the ba? That it comes to exclude intimacy, right? Intimacy and stira. Right? But it does not come to exclude kinui. It doesn't come to exclude the warning. What is Rebbe Eliezer's svara? Says the Gemara. Wait a second. Rebbe Eliezer, why are you saying that? Ve'ema ba velo bestira. Well, why don't you also say that ba comes to exclude, that ba only excludes tuma, and it doesn't exclude stira? Like, why are you saying that stira is like tuma?
Right.
Why are you saying that stira is included? So he will answer and say, stira iskash lituma. Stira is connected in the verse to tuma. Dichsiv, because the pasuk says, v'nistera, she was secluded, vihi nitma'a, and she became tme'ah. So the Torah itself juxtaposes stira and tuma, and says Rebbe Eliezer, just like tuma is sufficient with one witness, so too stira is sufficient with one witness. Hence, Rebbe Eliezer's position is two for kinui, one for stira, and one for tuma. Okay. The Gemara says to him, wait a second. Kinui nami, you're telling me that stira is connected to tuma. Kinui nami is kishlatuma. The Torah also juxtaposes kinui and tuma. Dichsib, because the pasuk says, "V'kinei es ishto v'hi nitma'a," right? And he warned his wife, and she became tme'ah. So just like the Torah juxtaposes the words of seclusion and tuma, the Gemara brings another pasuk where the Torah juxtaposes the words of kinui, of warning, and tuma. If we can say regarding the case where the Torah juxtaposes seclusion and tuma, just like tuma has one witness, seclusion has one witness, so what do we do when the Torah juxtaposes kinui and tuma? Do we say, just like tuma has one witness, kinui should have one witness? Is that something that we're going to say? So the Gemara answers and says, Hamiet Rahmana Ba, the Torah excludes, right? Through the use of the word ba, the Torah excludes something from this lenient or from this stringent one witness rule. Remember, right? No, one witness is more stringent than two witnesses. Think about it, okay?
It's more easily.
Didn't the Gemara bring a proof from the two witnesses are needed in financial matters? Like a page back?
That was before. Yeah.
So
Go
why
ahead.
we-
Because now what the Gemara is doing, the Gemara is arguing about the ramifications of the word ba, right? It seems that, right, when it says ba, ba comes to exclude, meaning only this, excluding other cases. The case of one witness, the stringency of allowing one witness to create fact, if you will, that's a stringency, because usually fact is created by two witnesses. The stringency of allowing one witness to create fact is based on the Torah's use of the word v'ein aid, v'aid ein ba, right?
Stringency, not leniency.
Because to create reality, normally we create reality with with two witnesses.
Right.
Two witnesses testify, we say that that's what happened. Right? Here we're creating reality with one witness.
It's easier to create a reality with
It's
one
easier to create a reality, but it's more stringent for the transgressor. Thank you. Yeah.
witness. Okay, so it depends on which way, from who's.
Right. Okay. So
This end, we look at it from the modern.
it says v'aid ein ba.
I don't plan to be the trans.
Right. This stringency of one witness only applies to this case, and other cases are excluded. What are the other cases that are excluded? So kinui seems to be excluded. Stira seems to be excluded according to Rebbe Eliezer, but not excluded according to Rebbe Yoshua. All right. So the question is, why does Rebbe Eliezer exclude? Why does Rebbe Eliezer include stira in the stringency of two witnesses? He says because there is a verse in the Torah that juxtaposes these two phrases. So the Gemara says to him, wait a second, there's also a verse that juxtaposes kinui, and you don't say that kinui only requires one witness. So the Gemara comes along and the Gemara says, V'kine es ishto v'hi nitma'a hamiet rachmana ba uma ra'isa. Why did you choose stira over kinui? If they're both juxtaposed to tuma, you're saying that only stira is included with the ba of tuma, not kinui. Why? Mara'itza, what did you see to do that? So says Rebbe Eliezer, mistabra, it's logical. What's logical here? Stira, right? Mistabra, stira adifa. Stira is, the word adifa means preferable. Here, we're saying, what? No, stira is more closely akin. Stira is more closely akin in result to tuma than kinui is to tuma. Why? Because if the man warns his wife and says, I don't want you to be together with Moshe, and there are two witnesses who hear that, and right, and she's never alone with Moshe, nothing happens. But now two witnesses heard two witnesses heard her warned that she shouldn't be alone with Moshe, and now she was alone with Moshe, and there was credible testimony that she was alone with Moshe. What would the result of that credible testimony be? Would she be allowed to live with her husband? No. Credible testimony that she was secluded with Moshe, after there was credible testimony that she was warned not to be alone with Moshe, would assur her to her husband. What's the result of somebody witnessing intimacy between her and the adulterer?
Without a warning? Without a warning?
No, with the warning. The same result. The same result. She would be assur to her husband. Right? She would be assur to her husband. Now, the truth is, if nobody saw her be intimate and they only saw her secluded, there's a chance that somewhere down the road she will not be assur to her husband anymore. She'll drink the water and she'll be fine, in which case she will be permitted to her husband again. Whereas if somebody sees her intimate with a man, with the adulterer, then she will never be permitted to her husband again. But the Gemara is not looking long term. The Gemara is looking short term. And what the Gemara is saying, what Rebbe Eliezer is saying, if I look at stira, if I look at seclusion can bring about the same result with credible testimony as tuma can. And since tuma can do that with one witness. So stira can also do it with one witness. That's why Rabbi Eliezer holds 2, 1, 1, as opposed to Rabbi Yehoshua, who holds 2, 2, 1. Okay, clear? Good? Yeah? Okay. So now the Gemara comes along and the Gemara says, Adarabba, says the Gemara. Wait a second. You're telling me...
She disobeyed her husband. In other words, her husband wants her, somebody, she says, do not spend time with Moshe. Do not be alone with Moshe. And then,
Not don't spend time with Moshe, don't be alone with
don't be
Moshe.
alone with Moshe. And she disobeys. That's pretty, that's.
Or that never happened to you?
Not since he got here at 9.
Before
that, I don't know.
Ron, don't be so sure.
To disobey, and then to be alone, she's actually great.
It has nothing to do with her disobeying him, right? It has to do with her violating the warning that he gave her. In other words, he gave her a warning. He said, I'm warning you in front of these 2 witnesses, do not be alone with Moshe. And then she, despite the warning, went ahead and was alone with Moshe. Now, yes, she disobeyed him, right? But if he had said to her in front of 2 witnesses, I'm warning you not to eat an apple, and then she goes ahead and eats the apple, we don't care. It's irrelevant, right? It's the fact that she was alone with Moshe, which creates the appearance and quite possibly the act of adultery that we're concerned with. It's not just that she disobeys, okay? Okay. Says the Gemara, wait a second. You want to say that stira is more logical because stira has the same effect as tuma does? Says the Gemara on the first wide line. Adarabba, kinui adif. It's more logical to say that kinui should also be excluded, that the stringency of one witness should also apply to kinui. Kinui should also be excluded from the rule of 2 witnesses. Why? Shekain ikar garam la, right? Because if there was no kinui,
There's no stira.
well, there might be stira, but
But
it doesn't mean anything.
Exactly.
If there was no kinui,
There's no, exactly.
she could be alone with Moshe and it will be irrelevant. I mean, it might not be nice, right? She'll violate yichud, but without a kinui, there's no drinking of the Sotah waters, there's no, right? Kinui, so what the Gemara is saying is, you want to tell me that she becomes usher if she's secluded, and that's why seclusion should be included in the 1-person stringency rule, 1-aid stringency rule. I'm telling you it's more logical to say that kinui should be included in the 1-aid stringency rule. Why? Because without kinui, who cares about stira?
Well, that's precisely why you need 2, because it's the root cause, everything else builds
Right,
on that.
everything else added.
But do you understand what the Gemara is saying? I mean, what you're saying makes sense. But do you understand what the Gemara is saying? The Gemara is saying, if you're going to tell me that the end result of her becoming usher to her husband is what anything that causes that should be included in the stringency of 1-aid, so kinui is what starts the whole ball rolling. Right? Without kinui, there is no stira.
But there's still tumor though.
What?
There's still tumor.
What does that mean?
1-aid to tumor without warning is
But there's no
not
so.
a problem?
Listen, everything flows from kinui. So
No,
therefore,
no,
if one's
again,
good
if
at
there's
everyone
no
else,
The
kinoi,
same question you asked at the end of last week.
right, and there's 1-aid
If there's 1-aid to
to
tuma,
intimacy, and that's the only.
1-aid to intimacy, and there was no stira,
Oh, well,
there was no
there was no
kinui.
kinui.
where there were no witnesses for kinui, and I think I said last week I didn't know, and I still don't know. I have to,
Well,
have
neither
to look
do
it
I,
up.
so we're okay.
Okay. Fair enough. Okay. So the Gemara says, Adarabba, kinui adif shekain ikar garam la. Right? Because without kinui, the whole thing doesn't get started. Then the Gemara comes back and the Gemara says, wait a second. Right? You think kinui is the essence? But ilabs stira kinui miika, right? If there's no stira, who cares about the kinui? In other words, you're telling me kinui is important because it starts the whole thing. I'm telling you, wait a second, right? I'm telling you that if you don't have stira, kinui is irrelevant, right? So so what's the, you're telling me.
Says the two of them need to
You're telling me
stand.
kinui is more important. I'm telling you stira is more important because if you don't, you're telling me kinui is more important because if there's no kinui, the whole thing doesn't get started. I'm telling you stira is more important because if there's no stira, who cares about kinui? Says the Gemara. The Gemara is going around in circles.
You got that right.
But they're not, because you needed to have something. I mean, the husband just doesn't pick this up out of thin air. So there had to be something that happened. The kinui had to have happened before the stira had to have happened before the.
No.
No, you don't understand. They could be like this, but then somebody would go back to the husband and say, listen,
Yeah, somebody can spend, I saw you, your wife was spending a lot of time in motion.
alone.
No, not even alone.
No, just spending a
Not
lot of
even
time.
alone.
He says, don't spend any time alone. with
She's,
Moshe.
he checks her phone and she's texting Moshe all the time, and she's WhatsApping with Moshe and she's Snapchatting with Moshe, and the husband is saying, "Whoa, this is not a good thing. I don't want you to be alone with Moshe."
In front of
Okay. Okay. Says the Gemara, as we continue to go around in circles. Ve'ilav kinui, if there was no kinui, stira maya honey, right? Gemara says, if there was no stira, who cares about kinui? And the Gemara says, if there was no kinui, who cares about stira? In other words, we're just going to go around in circles here. The Gemara says, you're right, that's true. We are going to go around in circles, but nevertheless, even though we are going to go around in circles, nevertheless, I will tell you, says the Gemara, afilu hachi, stira adifa de aschalta de tumahi. What is Rabbi Eliezer's svara? It is true, says the Gemara, that kinui without stira is irrelevant and stira without kinui is irrelevant. But despite that fact, where I can't prove that anyone is more important than the other, I can nevertheless, says Rabbi Eliezer, tell you that what is stira? Stira is aschalta de tuma. What is seclusion? The minute when a woman goes into seclusion with a man, she is in effect saying, I'm prepared to engage in relations with this guy. Right? Stira is the beginning of Tuma. Now, they might just have a Diet Coke together, but theoretically, Stira is the beginning of Tuma. And since Stira is the beginning of Tuma, Rabbi Eliezer takes the position that just as Tuma, we apply the stringency of one witness, so too to Stira, we apply the stringency of one witness. That's why Rabbi Eliezer says 2, 1, 1. And Rabbi Yehoshua says 2, 2, 1. 2, 2, 1. Okay? So far, so good. Everybody agrees to that? Okay, good. All right, now the Gemara is going to continue. What does the Gemara say? Masnisin delo ki haitana. Our Mishnah, which stated that Rabbi Eliezer holds 2, 1, 1, and Rabbi Yehoshua holds 2, 2, 1, that Mishnah does not follow the opinion of another Tana who learned as follows. Ditanya, who learned in a Brisa, Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda Omer Mishum Rabbi Eliezer. Again, we have Rabbi Eliezer here, right? Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda said over in the name of Rabbi Eliezer, Hamekana liishto kinui, Hamekana liishto al pi eid echad o al pi atzmo umashkela al pi shnayim. What does the Brisa say? The Brisa brings us this very weird position. What's the weird position?
He warned her in front of one person.
Right. Our Mishnah says Rabbi Eliezer's position is 2, 1, 1. Right? 2, 1, 1. This Brisa says Rabbi Eliezer's position is 1, 2, 1. 1, 2, 1. What? It's a Brisas were collections that didn't get
Into the
They didn't get.
they didn't get into the Mishnah. But nevertheless, a brisa is an opinion, and especially if the brisa mentions somebody else's name. In other words, Rabbi Eliezer said this, that's our Mishnah. Well, here comes a brisa that contradicts it.
It doesn't,
Would be a different Rabbi Eliezer?
Yeah, they're different, yeah, another Eliezer.
it doesn't contradict it.
Go ahead.
If you start with 2, then it's 1-1. If you start with 1, then it's 2-1. Somewhere in the process, you gotta have 2 witnesses. To either the kinoi or the stira. Rabbi Eliezer says, if you have 2 witnesses, that's where we started. You have 2 witnesses to the kinoi. Then 1 is enough for stira and 1 is enough for tuma. If you don't have 2 witnesses to the kinoi, but you have 1, you still have the beginning of a process. Now you have 2 to stira. I mean, they don't have to be contradictory.
Hold off on that. Initially, they seem contradictory, okay? All right? Initially, they seem contradictory. Right? Initially. Because our Mishnah says, what is Rabbi Eliezer? 2, 1, 1. What does the Brisa say? 1, 2, 1. Initially, they seem contradictory. Says the Gemara that it must be, right? Our Mishnah is not like the Brisa. Heshivu Chachamim, the Chachamim answered and said, L'divrei Rabbi Yossi v'Rabbi Yehuda ein l'davar sof. In other words, according to this position of Rabbi Yossi v'Rabbi Yehuda, who says that Rabbi Eliezer's position was 1, 2, 1, ein l'davar sof. Right? Ein l'davar sof means there's no end to this matter. What does it mean, ein l'davar sof means there's no end to this matter? The Gemara is going to come back and explain that, but let's continue for a second. To Rabbi Yossi b'Rabbi Yehuda Amar Kra, Rabbi Yossi b'Rabbi Yehuda says, the pasuk says, ba v'lo b'stira, ba meaning only in the case of tuma is 1 witness sufficient, but lo b'stira, but in the case of seclusion, you need 2 witnesses, right? Ve'ema ba v'lo b'kinui. Maybe I'll say ba also comes to, right, exclude kinui, which would make it 2 witnesses for kinui. But Rabbi Eliezer here says only 1 witness for kinui. V'kinui iskish letuma. Dichsiv. In other words, it's the same thing that we did before. We're just switching the order a little bit around. He says kinui is connected to tuma. Dichsiv v'nistera v'hi nitma'a. Okay? I'm sorry. Kinui iskish letuma. Dichsiv v'kineis ishto v'hi nitma'a. So, and that's why Rabbi Eliezer says 1, 2, 1. Because kinui and stira are juxtaposed together in the pasuk. So just like, kinui and tuma are juxtaposed together in the pasuk. So just like tuma has 1, stira has, kinui has 1. Along comes the Gemara and says, wait a second. Stira is also juxtaposed. V'nistira v'nitma'a. So says the Gemara, okay, you know what? Right, Dichsiv v'nistra v'hi nitma'a. So says the Gemara, Hahu likama shiur stira, kidei tuma. What's the purpose there of juxtaposing stira and tuma? The purpose is to teach us how long the 2 of them need to be secluded together. What is the shiur of seclusion that has to be witnessed in order to force her to drink the water? In other words, let's say that she walks into the room and 15 seconds later walks out of the room. So 2 witnesses saw her walk into the room, and 15 seconds later, 2 witnesses saw her walk out.